Hello, freaks, geeks, degenerates, and basement dwellers and nerds. Welcome to the Nerd Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we are gonna explore just how the Dominion would take over a planet, and not just a planet with one or two colonies, but a good sized planet with a large population, with plenty of cities and a couple of million inhabitants. How would the Dominion go about it? Uh, Thinking a bit about what technology is available to the Dominion in Star Trek. So let's take a look. Well, I think infiltration would play a big part of it. Maybe not infiltrate every planet with shapeshifters, but certainly infiltrating Federation and Starfleet command structure to find out all the juicy details about the target in question. And if it's an important planet, maybe you do have infiltrators on site, on location to help out, scout out targets in advance. But definitely extract information from within the Federation and Starfleet, relying on shapeshifters. And then the first step would be to secure orbit. Granted, the first step is to defeat Starfleet in the system and have Starfleet removed altogether, and then secure the orbit, which will allow you freedom of movement. You can monitor the entire planet from afar, and you can cut off the planet from reinforcements and supplies and what have you. Now the planet's still going to have replicators and stuff like that, so you can't starve a planet like you do a castle in a siege, but you can make sure that you control it so there's nothing going in and out. And once you have secured the orbit, taken care of orbital defense stations, removed enemy ships, then you move on to orbital bombardment. And this, of course, means you target all the juicy targets and objectives on the planetary surface. Installations that can open fire against your ships in orbit or against ships trying to enter atmosphere. Places where soldiers, armies can hide, resupply, and stuff like that. And other vital critical infrastructure. Maybe you're taking out power plants and stuff like that to make sure that the population can't resist you in the long run. So you will do this. You will scan for targets from orbit, maybe use information from infiltrating units to accurately target these locations, but it will be a campaign of orbital bombardment to take out defensive structures that can engage you in the air and in orbit, and also take out large concentrations of forces that might resist you when it's time to deploy troops. And when you've done this, the next step will be to secure aerial superiority. And now you enter with your smaller craft into the atmosphere of the planet to make sure that the Federation and Starfleet can't move around freely on the surface or in the air. You hunt down anything that's flying that you don't want to be flying. And if the enemy Starfleet in this case is trying to maneuver on the ground, you can spot them easily enough with your aircraft and with assistance from orbit, and hunt them down and make sure that the enemy Starfleet can't maneuver freely on the planet. So you secure aerial superiority, take out targets as they appear, both in the air, on the ground. And essentially what you're doing in next step is to detect all larger concentrations of Starfleet officers in this case. Where are they hiding? Where are the quote-unquote armies located, so that you can detect them and home in on them, because the next step is to engage these larger groups of Starfleet security officers that can actually engage you in combat on the ground itself. And this does not include engaging them with your aerial aircraft. You might do that from time and time again with the Jem'hadar, but I think the Dominion would rely on technology to deal with 90% of the resistance, conventional resistance forces on a planet. And that is using your aerial assets and ships in orbit to locate them, where they're focused, where they're concentrated, and then rely on technology, lock on to these large groups of enemies with transporters, and relying on your larger ships in orbits to home in, lock on, and transport large groups of enemies off the planet and into space. And I actually think this is the most effective way the Dominion and the Romulans, Cardassians, and whoever can deal with enemy armies on a planet. You find them, lock onto them, and then transport them off the planet. Maybe high into the air so they fall down to make a statement to anyone on the planet. If you resist us, this is going to happen. So you literally have bodies raining out of the skies. That would be a pretty horrific statement to anyone willing to resist the Dominion. But most enemies would probably be just hoisted off the planet and rematerialized in space. And you would have millions, thousands, maybe millions of troops floating around in orbit without a shot fired. You just need to hunt them down where they're concentrated, since you have sensors in orbit, and now you also have sensors in the atmosphere. Find them and then transport them off the planet, a couple of hundred at a time, until you have either reduced the fighting force, or maybe they surrender as they realize that it's futile to resist, as it were. Now, since it's Star Trek, you will always find a situation where you can't reach troops on the ground. You can't transport them off. There might be force fields in the way and stuff like that, shields. You can't get every enemy off the ground relying on transporters. So you need to find them and hunt them down. And here you might go in with strafing runs with the smaller attack craft, maybe orbital strikes. But I think, again, transporters will play a big part here, unless it's a shielded area. Instead of artillery, you will be using transporters to transport bombs, explosives, onto the enemy target or in the vicinity of the target to engage them from afar without risking your own ships and your own soldiers. So if you go in with strafing runs, Starfleet might find a way to engage them. Why not better just transport bombs onto the target, or rely on orbital strikes to try and reach them? So maybe there's a shield protecting a bunker underground. Rely on orbital strikes and maybe strafing runs to deal with the shield. And then instead of assaulting this underground complex, just transport bombs into the area and destroy it from within, relying on these transporters. Again, you can also transport, once the shields are gone, you might be able to lock on to some of the Starfleet officers and transport them out of the area and off into space. But transporters used as artillery to getting bombs accurately onto a target, I think that is something that the Dominion and Romulans and Cardassians and other factions, they would rely on transporters a lot in order to engage targets on the ground. But it is Star Trek after all, and there will always be reasons why you can't solve things relying on technology for whatever reason. So you can't use your transporters, you can't use your phasers and what have you and stuff like that. So you have to have troops up close and personal in old-fashioned 20th century style combat. And well, of course, the Jem'hadar are better equipped and better trained than any Starfleet officer. So at this point, the Starfleet officers will be outnumbered and outgunned. The Jem'hadar will have air support, orbital support maybe, but they might have strafing runs from the air, helping them out with the combat. They will have numerical superiority. They will be better trained, and Starfleet is at a great disadvantage. On top of that, we know that Jem'hadar can shroud themselves using personal stealth equipment, and relying on this, they can easily outflank Starfleet positions to get into favorable tactical advantageous locations to engage Starfleet in the flank, or outmaneuver them in general to get up close and personal maybe, or engage them from a advantageous position. Beyond that, in this situation, the Jem'hadar can also rely on maybe transporters. Like we said, in combat, why not transport one unit out of combat and onto a different location where you can engage the enemy from behind or from an unexpected quarter, in combination with shrouded troops, or you're transporting over here and they shroud and moving close from behind and stuff like that. So at this stage of the invasion, the Jem'hadar and the Dominion, they have every bit of advantage. They can rely on transporters to easily move around the battlefield to outflank the enemy. They can shroud to advance up close and engage, and you have air superiority and orbital superiority that will be able to help you out in the combat against Starfleet in this case, or against any other foe. So at this point in the invasion, the last pockets of resistance are well and truly outgunned and outmaneuvered. And this is basically the end of it. This is just rinse and repeat. The Jem'hadar can now begin to hunt down pockets of resistance and outmaneuver them, outflank them, and grind them down. They have numerical superiority at this point. They can shroud and outflank, rely on transporters to move in reinforcements and attack the enemy from an unexpected angle, and they have aerial and orbital superiority at this point. So you can take out support units while you're engaging frontline units, and it's just a matter of time before the Jem'hadar and the Dominion have removed all resistance on any given planet at this point. And now it's down to policing the rest of your population, bringing in all the Jem'hadar you need to keep an eye on things, working with the local government to try and get them to collaborate rather than resist. And you're going to have thousands of enemy soldiers, resistance fighters, hovering around in outer space, having been transported off the planet. If there's a resistance group having a meeting, you locate them with infiltrators and what have you. You don't need to bomb them. You don't need to attack them with Jem'hadar. Find out where they're at, in what building, in what room, and then lock onto them with transporters and just beam them off the planet, rematerialize them in space, and be done with it. And maybe try and figure out who's the ringleader and keep those few individuals for interrogation to find the rest of the resistance. But this is the end result, basically. The Dominion takes over a planet. It's not going to take a day or two. It's going to take a couple of weeks, a couple of months. But since most resistance will early on just be removed, relying on transported technology, it's going to be really difficult for a planet to resist the Dominion invasion once you begin to get Jem'hadar onto the ground after the Dominion has secured orbit, secured the atmosphere, and begin transporting enemy pockets of resistance off the planet. So when the Jem'hadar arrive, it's just a matter of mopping up what's left of any resistance. And then the Jem'hadar, the Dominion, I should say, can begin working with the local government to well and truly secure the planet and force them to be assimilated into the Dominion. And with that, thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting, and if you have any opinions on it, leave a comment down below, and I will probably give you a reply. Anyway, see you around. Bye.